Thank you once again for tuning in with 28 Days, where we're celebrating our history, our heritage, and our culture and our stories. And today we have another distinguished guest who are welcome to the set. Welcome to the set, Hiba.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, Hiba, give people a background of who you are and what you do.
How much time do we have?
You got time.
So my formal title is I'm an associate professor of history.
Okay.
And I also direct the Center for Arab and Islamic Studies here at Villanova.
Okay.
But I identify, as you can see, as a Muslim American woman.
Mm-hmm. Now, with your studies and with your educational expertise, what are some of the barriers or some of the cultural dynamics you educate people in that capacity?
So because most people very quickly can identify me as Muslim, one of the things the center does, and which is why I think I'm so invested in it, is we try to dispel a lot of the misconceptions and misperceptions about Islam and Muslims, and especially as a Muslim woman where people presume me to be oppressed and victimized, and I must be living at home with a man who slaps me upside my head every day, and that I'm forced to have to wear the hijab, which is the headdress. Part of what fuels me in being director as well as a professor of Middle East Studies is shaping students' minds to think differently about not just me as a Muslim woman, but stereotypes more broadly.
Okay.
So we do specifically focus at the center on how we can dispel some of these misconceptions about Muslims, but I also take an opportunity in my class to really get at, you know, why is it that we have stereotypes and that powers, you know, systems of power are based on the marginalization or disenfranchisement or silencing of certain people within this broader system, and why are certain people privileged? So my experience as a Muslim woman, you know, then can speak to other minorities who have those similar challenges. So, you know, African Americans, I identify as black. To, you know, questions of sexuality, questions of different religions that are not represented, for example, as well as they could be on this campus. So the center hopes to kind of deal with all of those, and so my work personally and professionally is really channeled toward really making a more inclusive environment.
Well, that's interesting. You're a professor, so you can't be oppressed, and you're working, so you can't be staying at home. So,
Enough said, right?
So those myths are dispelled, right?
Right.
So now once people, let me ask you this, what is the cultural context you grew up in?
Wow. So my story is so representative on the one hand and maybe not so much on the other. So my family is from Sudan. I was born in Sudan, and we immigrated when I was less than a year old, and we immigrated to the Midwest. Okay. And my experience in the Midwest is diametrically opposed. We lived in Wisconsin, and in Wisconsin it was Madison, and Madison has longstandingly been a place of progressive thinking, liberal thinking. University of Madison, Wisconsin is one of the most progressive universities in the nation. And that is where my father went. And so we grew up in Madison in a place where it was very culturally diverse. And if it wasn't diverse, people were still very open-minded.
Wow.
And it was incredible for the first 6 years of my life that, you know, I saw kids playing, you know, in the playground that were coming from all kinds of backgrounds, because the student housing had people from China, people from the Middle East, people from Africa, all these people coming to study at University of Wisconsin-Madison. So I had a great upbringing there. And then we moved to Indiana.
Expound.
So I lived in Indianapolis, but we weren't very far from parts that were very, say, Ku Klux Klan friendly.
Okay.
So we got to know the KKK very intimately, you know, and I very quickly began to understand what racism was in a way that I had not. I mean, I was at this point 6 years old. Okay. And we lived there for 10 years. And so the formative years of my life were formed by an incredible sense of racism, but on the other hand, my mother insisting that we stay in our neighborhood where we moved in. It was a predominantly white neighborhood. 5 families immediately moved out. You know, the rest just kind of tolerated us. And then over time, through interactions, whether at school as we were students or my mother through work, people got to understand, okay, yes, we're foreign, yes, we're Muslim, yes, we're black, but y'all eat the same foods that we do. And then they started, my brothers played football. And so once you got black kids on the football team,
yeah, well, it makes a difference.
even though they sucked, they were the popular kids. And so they got in with the popular crowd. And so the football players were always in our house, and they walk in, and next thing you know, they're saying, Assalamu alaikum when they walked in. And so there was this interesting moment of cultural exchange where they saw we were American, but they were also showing that they were culturally aware of our beliefs in a way that was very respectful. And so I had these two experiences living there with people who were very inclusive and people who were very exclusive. And I think that shaped me in some really interesting ways.
If people wanted to find out what you do and where you are, because I know you're here in Villanova, how can they get in contact with you? Can you
Email
okay,
all
what's
day.
your email address?
So you can find me on the website. If you go to the villanova.edu website and just put in my name, HIBBA, that's HIBA.
Okay.
And last name is ABUGIDEIRI at villanova.edu, or just put in that in the search tool. You'll find my email address, or you can just put Center for Arab and Islamic Studies, and all my stuff will come up.
Hey, we really appreciate Hiba coming to the set.
Thank you for having me.
And once again, we thank you for tuning in with 28 Days. As promised, where we're celebrating our history, our heritage, and our culture, as well as these unique stories. And what we're trying to do is dispel and break down barriers and deconstruct the confinements that we put ourselves in. We ask you to tune in tomorrow, where we once again will promise you to bring another guest. Thank you, and do come back again. Have a great day.